I had a little bird. Its name was Enza. I opened the window and influenza. Influenza was one of the worst outbreaking diseases that have occurred to this day. The horrible outbreak started in 1918 and continued on into 1919. The influenza pandemic killed around 40 million in 1918. That's more killed in the Great War. Influenza infected 1/5 of the world's population and just in a few months killed more than any other illness in recorded history. There was no easy way out of influenza because most deadly ages were between 20 and 40. 20 to 40-year-olds were in the worst situation because they had the best chance of dying. Influenza hit everyone really hard and not very many people survived it. I know that influenza was rough because the average lifespan during 1918 was 10 years old. Influenza traveled throughout the world all too well. Before the doctors could figure out what it was being spread by trade routes. Many trade routes carried influenza. Also, ships full of people were infested with influenza. Between trade routes and ships, influenza was spread to North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Brazil, and South Pacific. That's how 1/5 of the world's population got infected. Word has it that this whole mess originated March of 1918 at Fort Riley's Camp Funston. Another regular day was taking its course when Albert Gitchell, a mess cook, was complaining about a sore throat. Albert was blamed for the start of the flu. The next few days, more and more people were getting influenza. After the first week, 522 cases of influenza were reported in Camp Funston. Fort Riley was the beginning of what the world dreaded for some years after. Unforgettable influenza pandemic consisted of 2 phases. The first phase was influenza hit without warning in spring of 1918. The flu during the first phase wasn't really severe but caused illness and was known as the 3-day fever. The first day was sore throat, second day was sore throat and coughing, and the third day it would fade away. The flu would disappear after a few days and one was fine. The first phase wasn't a huge deal, but was the start of something severe. The second phase of influenza hit like a brick house. The second phase was really severe and doctors couldn't do anything to prevent it. Influenza spread rapidly in the second phase and was really rough for some people. Many people died within hours of the first symptoms of influenza. People were lucky to make it a few days before dying. There was no prayer for anyone who had influenza in the second phase. Many people had theories of how influenza could be prevented. Streets of every road were sprayed with chemicals. People walking around town or even at home wore anti-germ masks. Factories changed no smoking rule because everyone thought smoke would kill the disease. Lots of people would only eat porridge because they thought it would help. Many people gargled daily to rinse out all of the germs. After trying all these things, people were tired and sick with influenza because none of these methods were ineffectual. Influenza was one of the worst illnesses ever, and the world would have definitely been better without it. Most people are wrong about most things most of the time.